So, Rocketman, which is directed by Dexter Fletcher, who also directed, or more to the point, finished off Bohemian Rhapsody. It's written by Lee Hall, so the script should be really good. And it stars Taron Egerton as Elton John. Taron Egerton is fantastic in the film. He really makes his own character of Elton, and he develops him. It's not an impression. It's kind of musical fantasy. The songs are used to illustrate where he is in his life, how he's feeling, and really it's about Elton's search for love and affection at different points in his life and about him not being able to find it. I found parts of it slightly two-dimensional, some of the characters. I found that I was being told about the characters rather than being able to appreciate where they were in the film. I love the scenes with Jamie Bell as Bernie Taupin and Taron Egerton. I thought those scenes were really, really good, and I would have liked more of those scenes. Particularly Elton's manager, John Reid, who he has his first gay relationship with. It's very smarmy and smooth, and I felt he was slightly two-dimensional as well, but it's a very interesting big gay love scene which has been cut in many countries, particularly Russia. There's been a lot of fuss about that. The music's really good. If you like Elton John, you'll really love the film.
So who do you think this film is targeted at? Do you think it would have to be existing fans of Elton John, or do you think you could go along as complete...
Well, I think you could. I think you could go along. I mean, I'm quite an Elton John fan. I love Elton John. I think if you were an Elton fan, you'd love it. But if you didn't like the songs particularly, I'm not sure you'd love the film.
There's a lot of music in there. There's a lot of focus on
There is a lot of
the
music.
music.
I think one of the problems is because it's illustrating his life, and suddenly you get a part of his life and a song will come in saying that. You might be quite disappointed if you want the whole song.
But it's got such a back catalogue, you couldn't possibly have all of every song there anyway. But
No. And Taron Egerton has a very, very good voice. He does a very good Elton John. It's his version of Elton.
So
it's not an impression at all.
Not just a mimic.
No, absolutely not. And he develops it really well. And it is a standout performance.
I didn't know that he'd played Eddie the Eagle until somebody reminded me after the film had finished. He was fairly unknown to me, Taron Egerton. I saw him on Graham Norton and thought, oh, Elton John? I'm not sure I can see him as Elton John, but I thought he was terrific, really was. And a great voice, a really good singing voice.
Yeah.
As Jeremy said, not just an imitation of Elton, although he'd got the Elton John tone of voice pretty accurate.
Yes.
Yeah. We've had a lot of Star is Born. We've had a lot of those in this last few months. We've Star is Born, Brad Cooper and Lady Gaga. We've had Bohemian Rhapsody, Rami Malek. We've had Wild Rose, Jessie Buckley. All good films. And this is the fourth one. And we could go through the entire pop music catalogue.
Yes, and some of them are very similar as well, I feel. So they rise to fame and then they start using alcohol and drugs and then there's a downward spiral. I'm not sure how many more films like that I could watch, actually.
Yeah. I noticed that, or I've read that Elton John himself was quite keen that the downward bits were also included, so it wasn't purely an upward trajectory, because apparently he insisted on keeping the sex scene in as far as is possible.
Oh, yes.
And said that he hadn't led to paraphrase him, a U-grade life.
Yes.
It was definitely, it needed a higher cinematic category.
He's very upset that it's been cut in some countries. He's made a huge fuss about it.
Has
Rightly.
he?
Rightly.
Well, yes, but it's interesting that he's had some editorial influence, obviously.
It was predictable in the way the story came across, and you could almost have predicted that after the big downward spiral that we were going to get I'm still standing.
Yes.
It was there on the agenda, and sure
Yes,
enough,
that came on, and I thought, oh, really?
it spelt it out fairly obviously.
Oh,
Yes,
a
well,
bit
that's
predictable.
for me. That's one of the problems with the film. You were being told how characters were feeling, and then a song would come in that would also tell you how characters were feeling at the time, and I find that slightly cliched.
But presumably, a lot of songs are written to illustrate the person who's writing them's state of mind at the time.
Well, they are, and on their own, that's fantastic. But with the character as well,
Yeah.
acting that, and the song, and musical number as well, for me, it was a bit too much. I'm sure people will absolutely love this. Maybe I'm not the target audience.
I thought the way the songs came across was great, actually. I thought they'd involved other characters to sing little bits,
Yeah.
which I thought was quite clever. And the actual performance of the songs, I mean, it did make you think, wow! There was that element to it. I found myself people spotting. I thought, oh, it's Bodyguard Man. With John Madden, and oh, it's Harriet Walter. Oh, look, there's Billy Elliot, and you found yourself, yeah. Oh, it's that chap who's on television a lot. Oh, Stephen Graham, and it's that kind of film where there's so many characters doing cameo parts. Not all cameo, they're big parts. It's very easy because I know people were coming out saying, "Who was that Reed? Who was that manager? We've seen him." And I think it's that kind of film where you recognise people. I think it will get the crowds in. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
The other thing is, it made me. I have never seen Elton John live. I've never particularly wanted to, but it has made me think. Actually, that would be a really good live performance to see.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing. That's the thing I'm taking away.
I
from
would
it.
have liked to have been there at the Troubadour Club when he first
yeah.
went over
But
there
you've
because
missed that one.
he has said they were pretty much about to pack it in,
Yeah.
and they just got this break in the States and they just absolutely took off.
Yeah. But he is still touring. I think it's not that long since he came to Leeds, is
Doing
it?
Farewell.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not something I would.
I mean, it was
wanted
also
to
that
see before.
it is he's portrayed as just writing these songs. It's a bit like a Mozart thing. It's a gift from God, and these songs just pour out of him without any thoughts, and it's like a magical thing. I know he wrote songs quickly, but I'm not entirely sure that's how it worked.
Yeah. There's a wonderful. There's a wonderful diary entry that's been going the rounds on social media. It's something like got up, watched Grandstand, wrote Candle in the Wind, went to London to buy Rolls Royce, and Mick Jagger came for tea. And so he obviously did write some of them quite quickly,
He
because
wrote them.
that's like the
He
biggest
did write
selling
them
song of all time,
very
isn't
quickly,
it?
but not there's a bit where he writes a song and doodles around, and that's that song. I just thought, oh really? I just
It's the same with great art, great songs. You know, people say, oh, well, yesterday, wrote it in 20 minutes, McCartney and Lennon. It doesn't always take months of angst, does it, to write a great song?
Oh, no.
And I think that probably Elton John, although at the beginning they were pushing the fact that he could play anything that you sang, straight off. He's obviously an incredibly talented man. To stand at the piano or sit at the piano and be a star is not easy, because you're imprisoned by the piano keyboard. But his costumes and his persona got him above that problem of being at the keyboard, didn't they?